So a key tension that's been sort of repeatedly implied here is that data and data analysis is often assumed or interpreted to be neutral. That if I show you data, it is sort of capital T true, and it's a perfect representation of the world. But as we've seen, that is not true, and data is really not neutral. It's the result of numerous choices about data collection, aggregation, and presentation. And treating it as if it were true is simply wrong and inaccurate. A useful map cannot be exact, and your data analysis will never, ever be a perfect representation of reality. But many people will interpret it as if it is. So that's something that you need to be careful about. So here's an example of that, particularly looking at the challenge of presenting data. And this comes from a really excellent book, Feminism, by Catherine D'Ignazio and Lauren Klein, and they got this example from the New York Times. So both these plots show the same data. If you look at the gray line, it's exactly the same across both plots. But the version on the left emphasizes that the unemployment rate has been dropping, which is favorable to Democrats. And the version on the right shows that unemployment has been elevated for several months, a framing which is favorable to Republicans. The key thing is that both of these things are true. And even if I were to show you a plot that had no shading and sort of no lines indicating what's going on, a reasonable reader might look at this plot and interpret it either as being favorable to Democrats or to Republicans, and then they might walk away from that plot feeling like they had the only right interpretation of the data and that their view is backed up by the data. So even when it's sort of supposedly neutral, data really isn't neutral and can be subjective in terms of how it's interpreted. Here's another example, which is also taken from Data Feminism. So this is a map which was created by Gwendolyn Warren and the Detroit Geographical Expedition and Institute in partnership with many young people in Detroit. And the title of this map is, quote, "Where commuters run over Black children on the Point's downtown track." Each plot or each point on this map indicates a vehicle accident and fatality. And the people who lived in this neighborhood knew that there was a serious problem with vehicle safety, but they couldn't get the government to do anything about it because basically the government didn't really think that it was a real thing that was happening. So they ultimately conducted their own data collection and mapped all of these accidents or all of these incidents, and eventually did get the government to respond with implementing several safety measures. But again, this data would probably not have been collected if they hadn't done it themselves. And so what questions get asked and what data is collected is also not neutral and depends on sort of who has the ability to ask questions and collect data and who has sort of the power to do those things. So again, data is not neutral.